Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/prorevenge, where people tell us their best stories and when they got revenge on someone or something they didn't like. If you're new around here, please do hit subscribe down below so that you never miss out on another video. But for now, let's sit back, relax and enjoy some pro-revenge stories. My hag of a stepmom gave away my PlayStation 4 while I was away in college. So I rent out her house while she was on her honeymoon with her newest husband. So here goes. I am an only son. My mum died of ovarian cancer at only 55, 5 years ago. It broke my dad's heart. They had been together since college and were the same age, with my dad being a month older. I'm 22 and am about to graduate college with my degree in chemistry when the main events start to occur. I went to college on a full ride scholarship. This is important later. My dad met my now stepmom when she was my mum's nurse at the hospital where she spent her final days. My stepmom, Grace, played all the right notes to gain my dad's trust. She was empathetic to him, nurturing, comforting after my mum passed. I was 17 and old enough to sense that she was just trying to weasel her way into getting my dad's resources. But it was up to my dad if he wanted to be in a relationship with her. I was in my final year of public school and had just won a scholarship to attend college out of the country the following year. My dad mourned my mum for a year, and that whole time Grace would check in on him by phone every month or so. In my opinion, to scope out the possibility of sinking her hooks in him. After a year passed, Grace took the gloves off and went hard after my dad. Grace was only 40 when she and my dad started seeing each other. I didn't like her, but at the same time, my dad at least didn't seem so depressed anymore. So I tried to be less pessimistic about her and give her the benefit of the doubt. In my gut, I didn't trust her though. But we are Scandinavian, and at least in my family, the son does not tell his father what to do or even offer any opinion. Grace is from the Czech Republic if you're wondering. My father was a very successful banker during his career and amassed quite a portfolio of wealth. I'll spare you the details, but after 6 months of dating, Grace and my father are married. My dad never really got over my mum though, and he was getting weaker and weaker even though he was only 57. Since his health was fading, he called me to him and asked me point blank, "Boy, what do you need to set you up in this life?" I told him I don't need anything. I'm a man and can take care of myself. But what are you even talking about, Dad? You're going to be around for decades yet. I did remind him that he had living sisters with children, my aunts and cousins. I also reminded him that I had a full scholarship to college, so don't worry about giving me any cash. He was dead only a year later at 59. I, of course, have seen lots of Hollywood movies, so I consider the conspiracy theory that maybe my dad's nurse wife poisoned him and made him sign over all his money to her. But I really honestly do not think that's what happened. Other relatives didn't like Grace either, but they knew my dad was totally in love with my mum and that her death utterly broke him. Well, long story short, my dad bequeathed his 5-bedroom house to me even though I wasn't expecting it and didn't ask for it. He gave a small endowment to each of his sisters and their children. He left about 80% of all his existing money to Grace, which amounted to several hundreds of thousands of dollars. My dad ignored me because he's generous to a fault and still gave me several tens of thousands of dollars, which were of course very useful to me. Grace tried to put on a friendly front, but I could tell she was angry as hell that she didn't get my dad's house too. That belonged to me, and I had the legal papers to prove it. She was especially mad because we live in an extremely upscale and trendy location, and houses are hard to come by and easily sold for a massive profit. During the first few months after my dad's death, I had the nauseating, creepy experience of knowing that Grace was trying to feel me out to see if I might be into a little relationship with her. Gross. She still stayed at the house though, because over the last 3 years, she had gotten used to living there and acting like she owned it. And even though I officially owned it, I was always away at college and only visited my dad's old house once every couple of months. And even then, it wasn't to see Grace, but to see my cousins who lived just a few miles away. I downplayed the fact that it was really my house, and over the months, I think Grace gradually forgot that she really had no legal right to the house. She probably believed that sooner or later because I never asked her for any of the hundreds of thousands of my dad's dollars that she now had, that I was somehow independently wealthy and would just give up my house to her. I knew I'd eventually completely destroy this woman when she started dating some new guy only 5 months after my dad was in the ground. And one time, when I came home from college after graduating, she and her new boyfriend, some sleazy looking D-bag named Ivan, who was only a few years older than me, were acting like I was a guest in my own house and that they owned it. I played along. Grace told me she gave away my PlayStation 4 to Ivan's cousin because I'm too old to play with video games. I don't even know this dude, and you give him my PS4 to give away to some other person who I also don't know? I quickly changed all of my network passwords that same day. I smiled, but I knew what I had to do eventually. She also said that she and Ivan were getting married because I just can't mourn your father forever. I have to move on with life. I tell her that I graduated college and already secured employment with a local firm, and we'll soon find a new place to live. She looks thrilled, especially the part where it looks like I'll soon have a new place to live. Then, in a patronizing way, she tells me, "You'll always have a place in our house though. You are welcome to stay whenever you please." Thanks, Grace, really generous of you. What I really say is that I will probably have a new place in 3 months. She says that is wonderful because she intends to go to her homeland to have a wedding with Ivan and afterwards have her honeymoon. She assures me it's a local affair. Otherwise, I'd invite you, honey. And anyway, I know you're so busy. I congratulate her. She asks me if I can watch the house for her. Watch my own house? Sure. What I really say is, of course, I will take care of the house. I am careful to not say, your house. She and her D-bag fiance, who I am 100% sure is only there for Grace's money, ironic, go on their trip and I immediately put out advertisements in rental websites offering to lease my house. I hire movers and have all of Grace's furniture and possessions boxed up and put into a storage rental facility. I retain all of my parents' furniture that they had before my dad met Grace. Locks? Changed. All of them. Within days, I am inundated with dozens of inquiries regarding my amazing, furnished house with fantastic views. I rent it to a wonderful young family, a barista and his schoolteacher wife and their 2 preteen children. They pay me their first and last month's rent and sign a lease for a year. I warn them about my crazy stepmom who thinks this is her house, but I present them with contact information to my lawyer, the same lawyer my dad retained, in case they needed any assurance that I'm on the level. I also give my lawyer the information about the storage facility, including the fact that I generously paid 4 months of storage in advance. I then found a great apartment in the city near my new place of work. There, I met a woman in a restaurant I frequent at night after a long workday. We have been dating 6 months now and are engaged to be married. Grace, of course, tried to shriek and cause trouble when she realized she got kicked out of my house, but my lawyer quickly shut her mouth without me having to ever speak to her garbage face again. From what I hear, her and her trash husband left the country, and I assume they're blowing through my dad's money and will soon be broke like chavs usually become when they taste a little bit of what they think is the good life. So maybe Grace will go and try to exploit some other lonely man into giving her his money. Speaking of money, the house that I rent out is generating so much money that I not only am able to help pay for my niece's college, but I moved into a larger apartment of my own, together with my fiance. I love my job, but really, I could survive solely on renting my dad's old house. And to think, if Grace had only been cooler and nicer, I might have let her stay at the house, just to be a good sport. And definitely if she stayed the heck out of my room. But no, she had to act all proprietary, so I had to make her homeless as a wedding gift. Postscript: I bought another PS4, even though I didn't even use my old one that much. It didn't matter, it wasn't for Grace to give away. You don't give away other people's things, you give away your own things. Which is why I chose to kick Grace out of my house. Because it's mine, and I decide who stays there. That story to me was really good, but what I got out of it was these people really like to marry really quickly, because that was like 6 months, 5 months, or whatever. They just got married really quick, and surely you should wait a bit longer. I don't know, I'm no disrespect to them, because if they want to do that, it's their choice. I'm nothing to do with it, but it's just really quick to me. How I learned to program while simultaneously failing typing classes. This story begins when I was 8 years old. My father owned a rather nice for the time gateway PC, which by today's standards is less powerful than most smart toasters. He was cautious but let me use it for anything I wanted to do, which is where I first learned how to type. Yeah, it was incorrect because I was a kid and two-finger typing was easier than traditional typing. This led to me typing at 50 words a minute by the age of 12, even though it was technically done incorrectly. That summer, I'd convinced my parents to invest in the purchase of a Visual Basic 6 SDK, Compiler and Early Visual Studio IDE. In my spare time, I learned how to code, referencing books, the internet, and just messing about with it. Cut to high school. As a freshman, I was able to take 2 electives for the semester and noticed they'd had programming courses in Visual Basic and C++. Being the nerd I was, I decided to take them both. As a requirement for freshmen in the district, I was obligated to take a typing class. Enter Miss L. She was the typing teacher, and having had my older brother in her class, was not fond of my family. Immediately, she took out her frustrations with him on me. Throughout the semester, I was working the programming courses with ease. I was interested enough in programming that it eventually became my career path. In typing, however, I was failing. Partially because of the technique, but mostly out of her residual bitterness at my brother. I knew something wasn't right, as I'd handed in assignments that were flawless, but when I got them back, they'd have spelling mistakes I knew I didn't make, extra spaces I knew I hadn't placed, and formatting changes I knew weren't in the original. The computers we had were all networked together, and all had their media drives disabled. At the time, 3.5 floppy disks and CD readers. Flash drives weren't really a thing at this point, and if you had one, it was for maybe a meg or two and were crazy expensive. Not to mention, you had to install drivers to get them to work, which I couldn't do with the aforementioned lack of CD access. This is when I got creative. I approached my programming teacher, we'll call him Mr. S. I told him what was happening, and he gave me this quizzical look like, "Seriously?" So he takes me over to our networking teacher, Mrs. K. We had a CCNA certificate program at the school. I get them to carve out a small portion of the network drive where I can surreptitiously store all the documents I wrote prior to submitting them to Miss L. From there, I continued to do my work, storing every single document there before she could see it. This included my midterm and final exams. In the meantime, I held on to every printed out assignment I was given back. Manufactured errors directly highlighted. I passed both VB and C++ classes easily, and yet ended the typing class with an F, something like 40-ish overall. This is when I finally get my revenge. As I'm leaving class for the last day, she gives me this smug comment about how I'd see her next year. She only teaches typing. I went to the VP's office and told them that I needed to speak to her and the principal. I asked if Mr. S and Mrs. K could be there to explain what was going on. Together, the two teachers and I showed, without a doubt, due to timestamps information and the teacher's verification, that she was intentionally adding errors so she could fail me. The principal and VP were speechless. This wasn't the first time students had made such accusations. It happened maybe once every couple of years, but none of them ever had proof. At that point, she was pulled into the office and I was dismissed. The next day, I was pulled to speak with them once more, and I was informed that my grade would be adjusted to a B, as they couldn't confirm or deny my technique deductions, and that Miss L would no longer be teaching at the school. The funniest part of all of this, as it turns out, passing both those programming courses would have covered the typing requirement anyway. So even if I hadn't got that douchebag fired, I still wouldn't have had to endure her stuff another year. Also, I've since learned how to type more or less traditionally. You know, I feel this story is a personal attack because I write with like 4 fingers max, like barely. I never use all of my fingers, and I've always wondered like, should I change to use all of my fingers? But I'm like, it works anyway, so whatever. Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like. And if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.